Before we hop into today's conversation with one of the best coaches in the sport of running, I want to tell you a quick note that today's podcast is brought to you by Final Surge. And over the next couple of weeks, we will be documenting and chronicling some of the top coaches in the country across professional, collegiate, and high school sports teams. And we're calling this Final Surge Sessions because whether you're a coach, athlete, or entire team, Final Surge is the one platform built specifically for runners. It lets coaches easily deliver workouts, track results, and analyze progress, all in one clean dashboard. It syncs seamlessly with your GPS watch, Garmin, Coros, Apple Watch, Strava, you name it. No more juggling apps to stay organized. Final Surge brings training plans, messaging, and attendance tracking, super cool, into one simple place, perfect for any high school, college, or professional team. If you're a high school or college coach listening, head to finalsurge.com/schools for discounted pricing, up to 35% off. And then for anyone else listening to this, you can get 20% off your first coaching package with code Running Effect 20, all capital Running Effect 20 at checkout. Smarter training starts with smarter tools, and Final Surge is where that begins. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation with one of the top coaches in the country.
I would give that advice to any young athletes that are listening to your podcast, to just, in all the feelings of pressure or expectation, just to remember this doesn't last forever, and to just pause and look around and take those times in. And I was trying to take my own medicine with that, and not be so worried about the results, but just to really enjoy the bus ride over and the warm up and the huddle and the gun going off. And I tried to live that whole last year, just being really present, knowing that there wasn't going to be another one of those. And so, the morning NCAAs, of course, eye on the ball and laser focus of what we're doing, but also a great feeling of presence and gratitude, and just not wanting to miss the moment.
That was Coach Mike Smith today on the Running Effect podcast. And if you were to talk to me 5 to 10 years ago and tell me that I would have the opportunity to sit down with the legendary Coach Mike Smith, I wouldn't have believed you. This was a dream come true. Mike Smith has been on my dream guest list for many, many years, and today's conversation far exceeded my expectations, which were already high. If you're a coach, this one's going to blow you away. Get a pen and a notebook. It is packed to the brim with wisdom on how to not just develop athletes, but how to develop people. And if you're an athlete, this conversation will fundamentally transform how you view the sport and how you view excellence within the sport and how to go about achieving that excellence. And if you're listening to this podcast and you've never heard of Coach Mike Smith, one, you've been living under a rock, and two, he's an absolute legend. He used to coach at NAUU, where he won 5 men's cross-country titles, I believe 5 in 6 years. And then he earned 41, yes, you heard me right, 41 Big Sky Coach of the Year honors. He's now a coach within Nike Swoosh Track Club's network based out of Flagstaff. He coaches everyone from Gillen Rupp at the marathon level to Donovan Brazier at the 800-meter level, and then every athlete in between, from Nico Young, Drew Bosley, Ethan Strand, Parker Wolf, Liam Murphy, so many other absolute studs. He's got a wildly big future ahead of him in the professional coaching sphere, and he was one of the most historic coaches to ever do it at the NCAA level. If you guys enjoy this conversation, please pass it on. That's the easiest way in which we can grow, especially this conversation. I really want this one to leave a dent and an impact in the running community. So share it with everyone you know. Give us a 5-star review. It takes 5 seconds. And make sure you hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss another episode. So without further ado, I hope you all enjoy this remarkable conversation with the remarkable, the legendary, the successful, the championship winning coach, the man, the myth, the legend, Coach Mike Smith. Coach Mike Smith, welcome to the Running Effect podcast. I should say welcome back, just not with your doppelganger, Coach Miltenberg, just you this time. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Dominic.
What are the feelings and emotions? We're October 23rd, and you probably didn't have a team meeting today talking about the NCAA meet in Missouri.
Right. There you go. Yeah, it's a lot of things this fall. It's a really weird experience for me because I've never lived in a fall like in this way, where I'm not just zeroed in. It's actually very humbling and a little bit of like an ego check of, I think when you're living it day in and day out, you think everybody is into what you're into. And so, you almost walk through an NCAA cross country season thinking the whole world is thinking about what you're thinking about. And then like on the other side of it, you realize that life is going on without this. And that's strange. Still, when the NAU athletes are racing, I wake up that morning feeling like feeling like I did as a coach. I'm like really dialed in, but it's actually been it's been nice to almost just be able to reflect as to how I've been living my life all those years and see the other side of it a little bit. I think that's been a good exercise for me.
Something I want to talk to you about is the exit from NAU. Now you're a coach with Nike. We'll go through that soon. I would love to pick your brain on that. Just the
Sure.
amount of athletes you have. I'm pretty close with some of them. They've come on the podcast. It's such a cool thing you guys have going on there. But something I'm fascinated by is like when do you decide to go out on top, right? As athletes, they think about this in terms of their careers, but specifically as a coach in the NCAA, you were the guy who pioneered kind of double dipping, coaching a really quality historic NCAA team, and then some of the athletes after they graduate, you would take on, and then you fully take the transition and switch to go full time. I'm really curious. You could have done the NCAA thing and won a couple more titles. I have no doubt of that. How did you discern, with your closest friends, your wife, whoever it may have been? Okay, it's time for me to move on, take this next chapter.
Yeah, um, that's I think a lot of people feel like or easy to look at my situation and think that it was just a matter of I got offered an opportunity and I took it. I think honestly the inside of it was there was a long process to kind of arrive at this place and it really, like you said, began with, I never intended to coach both pros and college athletes. It just sort of happened gradually, and all of a sudden, a couple years into it, I almost was doing like two jobs, and I felt like there was definitely a breaking point to that. It came at a high cost, and always wanted to be a coach that felt like I wasn't leaving anything on the table for the people I was working with, and they had the best of me. I used to kind of give these like scary talks before working with a pro of you're never going to see me. I'm going to be gone every weekend at a college meet, or I'm not going to be around much, and and the professional athletes I worked with, I think, were really understanding of my obligations, but it doesn't mean like that always was easy for them. And I think as that time was going on, as I approached, it would have been the end of 2024, it was just clear that I had to do one or the other, but doing both was not going to be the best of me. We had a daughter by that point, and I really think the best coach of me is going to show up with some balance in my life as well. And I know that's important in my job is that we're already so crazy obsessed and can't shut it off, and that's part of our success. But I know that I was going to have to fight extra hard for that kind of balance, and I want my kids to be older and don't feel like they didn't never saw their dad because he was always at a track meet, and so I know that balance was going to be important. It was hours and hours of talking with my wife, and it was just clear it had to be one or the other. And I think actually in the 11th hour, it was like, all right, I'm just gonna be the best NAU coach I can be, and I'm gonna have to let the professional athletes know that maybe after the Olympics I won't be a professional coach anymore. And then it swung the other way, and this was an opportunity to be really focused in with much higher capacity with a smaller group of athletes. So it was a long time coming. It wasn't anything I imagined would come up. I was prepared to like be buried in the graveyard at NAU as an old man, like after a long career there. And I didn't necessarily think that this would be the turn it takes. But I think just like athletes, you can plan this stuff out and try to predict it, but it always takes twists and turns that you can't maybe foresee.
When I think to other sports, I'm a big sports fan of many different sports. College football, being college football season, you think of a Nick Saban. He wasn't forced out from Alabama. He kind of willingly chose to move on, and I know that was a really emotional exit for him and his family, who had invested so much in the Alabama program, brought it to what it is today. I think of you with NAU, carrying on the torch from the previous, coaching administration, and then taking it to new heights that I don't remember having been seen in the sport. And that was so fun for me. You guys starting to rise. I was in middle school is when I was really starting to get into the sport. And every year I never knew NAU existed until I started following the sport of running. It was this little school out of Flagstaff. And it was like, oh, I'm, maybe a bandwagon here, but it's really fun to watch every November and see them win and hear the stats of how this hasn't been done before. What was that exit like? Did it come through a team meeting? How emotional was it with, the athletes who in some ways, I hear this from many of them, you become like second father to, right? Kids leave for college, they leave their families and they invest with this team, with this family. You're the leader of it. What was that moment like sharing it with your athletes that you were going to move on?
There were some stages of this that I recognize looking back on, which was like was something that probably for a year was in my mind that was coming up, and I had this opportunity. But there was like a moment where I remember first, like, left work and came home in the middle of the day, and I like needed to talk to Rachel, and I said like, if I if I do this, it feels like I like this death of me, or like I'm just like I'm leaving this thing that I love so much. It's in my heart. When I took the NAU job, um, I I'm not even like a religious person, but I remember like looking up at the sky and being like, all right, if I could be the NAU coach, I swear I'll never ask for anything else in my life. Like I'll like this. It was really like my dream job, and I was just so excited and so much gratitude, and it just felt so strange to be leaving that. And I I really got into coaching because I wanted to be a teacher, and I felt like the opportunity to do that with college athletes was so apparent, and I wasn't sure that crossover with professional athletes. And so there was definitely like a grieving inside of that was it was really hard. And last year in fall of 24, we did a preseason week like we typically do at NAU. We One of the things we do every year is we take the athletes out to the Grand Canyon. Um, I knew I was going to tell the athletes in a couple days that this was going to be my last year at NAU. Um, and we were sitting on the edge of the Grand Canyon, and we almost naturally there's like this silence amongst the group as we're about to start a new cross country season. This is their team. This is the end of a preseason week, which is like kicking off this whole thing. And I knew, but they didn't know. And I was just incredibly emotional in that time because it I knew I was just going to miss that so much. Those were moments that mean the world to me. Such a privilege to be part of their time there, and actually to sit down and tell those athletes. I think as a coach, like like you carry this responsibility of just not wanting to let them down. Like that's like if you were to ask me, like the worst feeling you feel as a coach is feel like if you disappoint the people that you're trying to serve, or you let them down in some way, you don't meet an expectation. Um, I certainly would carry that really heavily in me, and so the words that were about to come out of my mouth, I just felt like I was just letting down the people I'd recruited. And they're all going to be really disappointed in me. And I was met with nothing but support from those kids. They knew they had a great transition to Coach Jared Cornfield. There were tears, but they knew they were going to be okay, and I think they were happy. They were happy for me as a coach, and happy for me as a dad and a husband. And I think that says a lot about our relationship.
Take me back to the morning of last year's NCAA cross country meet. Was there more heightened nerves because you knew it was the last one? Was there a sense of relief? What were the emotions last cross country season through those races? Whether it was Nutty Comb or all or the first race you guys do in Buffalo Park, knowing that okay, this is going to be probably the final time I ever experience these things. Take me through some of that.
Yeah, I try to take the advice that I dish out to these athletes regularly. I try to take that advice myself, and one of them is one of the things that we're always telling our kids was just to be really present in the time they're in. I know from the athletes that graduate and move on, uh, they're constantly talking about their experience and wishing that it wasn't spent with all this worry and stress and anxiety. I would give that advice to any young athletes that are listening to your podcast to just in all the feelings of pressure or expectation, just to remember this doesn't last forever, and to just pause and look around and take those times in. And I was trying to take my own medicine with that, and not be so worried about the results, but just to really enjoy the bus ride over and the warm up and the huddle and the gun going off. And I tried to live that whole last year, just being really present, knowing that there wasn't going to be another one of those. And so, but yeah, the morning NCAA's, of course, eye on the ball and laser focus of what we're doing, but also a great feeling of of presence and gratitude and just not wanting to miss the moment.
What was the plane ride home like? What were you thinking? Was it reflective introspection about your time there? Was it thinking towards the future? Was it doing a deep dive analysis into the athletes' results so you could talk to them about indoor track? Where was your mind at?
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. Just making sure like I wasn't caught up in my own stuff of like this has to be some saga of Coach Smith leaving, but also I have a job to do and I've got to coach these athletes and they need feedback and we've got BU in 2 weeks and whatever indoor season coming. And so making sure that I'm not just thinking about myself, but really focused on what they need. Always after NCAA's, there's like this great exhale and relief when something you've built up to for months actually has accumulation. Um, I remember the pieces I think that probably came up a little more at being my last were just a reflection of all those years in that on that day in that environment. Our season really comes down to a single day and just a lot of gratitude for the Tyler Days and Matt Baxters and Andy Truards and Jordy Beamishes and all the people we had shared for a decade, those moments. And those were some of my will always be some of my great memories in the sport. And people think it's because you win championships, but honestly, this last one where the guys finished fifth and the women finished fourth, I mean, that's as fun a memory for me to think back on as anything else. And just a lot of gratitude for all the people that made NAU what it was during that time, and not just the current athletes.
That third Saturday in November, I think it's the third Saturday, third or
Yeah,
fourth, something like
yeah.
that, is always special. Always comes with feelings. When you think back to NAU and your tenure there, what do you think about most? Do you think of, Baxter and Day ripping in Louisville? Do you think of freezing your ass off at Terre Haute when BYU got you
Mm.
guys? Do you think of the battle with Oklahoma State? Do you think of what are the key core memories that you think you're going to be telling your kids about one day?
I think the kind of big picture things that come up is the a special element of our sport is executing in singular moments that matter. So not season long stats or how you fare in a tournament, but it's really getting on a starting line and for 20 or 30 minutes delivering on the promises you made to your team and your friends and executing in those moments and holding yourself to just sheer accountability. That's a really special thing about what we do. There's no hiding and nothing can save you in those moments. I think the transformation that young athletes make trying to meet those moments is really what it's all about. And so at NAU, there was a lot of our time spent there where we were favorites or there was great expectation on us. We were, we're supposed to win or defending a win or, uh, trying to be on a podium. And so for athletes to have to live in that microscope and push out all the noise and to operate and execute in those moments despite great pressures, expectations, fears, um, those are the ones that come out like the the kids I knew that were just like the morning of it, they were fighting a lot of fear and they did it anyway and held themselves to that great accountability to what their team needed them to do. There's nothing like that for me, and I know who they are, they know who they are, and they did it, and they'll carry that forever. But that comes with the greatest respect for me as a coach because there's a lot of people that can't do that and the moment's too big for them. And so knowing the people that face those dragons and didn't back down, that to me is always what that day will be about.
When I think of NAU and their dominance, I think of culture. It's something that you preach on a lot about. And so I'm curious whether it's NAU or even now what you're trying to do with this new group. Culture comes from the top down. What are those core key pillars of culture in your mind? And how did you come across those and have those changed over the years? Did that change from year one at NAU to year six?
Yeah, when people throw around the word culture so much. I think every team in their start of their season or their team meetings, they're talking about culture. I think this is a place where you could beat a ton of people on this because easy word to say and hard word to live day in and day out. Easy word to say or claim that you're going to operate under, I think, in the first couple weeks of a season. Much harder to do that when you're tired and fatigued and disappointed or beat down. But it's something we always monitored. I would consider it more important than training data or workouts. People always, as a coach, like want to ask you about workouts, and when you're trying to do team things, man, you could have the best training in the world, but ultimately, how the group sees themselves, how they see the race, how they see each other, that's the most important thing. First and foremost, which comes to mind is, at least when it came to cross country, like we were always just running a team sport. It was never about anything individual. Everyone races with same uniform, same colored ribbons in their hair, and looks the same. It doesn't mean they're a team, and we were always going to have team be the focus of what we're doing. So it started with recruiting for us, and we had people that like Nico Young, Colin Salmon, Brody Hasty, these guys that came in as individual superstars in high school that came to NAU for team. So the way we talk from day one about what our team is trying to do, not what you're trying to do, but what our team was trying to do, that's the centerpiece of it. And ultimately that comes out into the hard moments in the race when it's different than you expected. It's harder than you thought. The race isn't going as you imagined. The reason those people execute over and over again is they're running for our team score and they're running for each other. So that's a big one to be, I think, very process oriented, to be focusing on what we're going to do, not what's going to happen. Actually, what we're going to do inside the 30 minutes, not what the outcome is going to be, our time, our place, who wins, who gets second, who gets third. To be curious seekers, not to be trying to show or to prove, but to always remain in the energy of being seeking. That was, I think, a key element of our program. We would ask our athletes to make sure every day when they showed up to work that they were great teammates to each other. That didn't mean they had to be great friends. Some of the people on your team organically will be the people in your wedding and all the things that you imagine them to be. But there's a lot of pressure on that, I think, to feel like a great bond of friendship with your teammates. And if that happens, that's bonus, that's special, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong. If you're not yeah, if you're not great friends, or someone is really different from you or gets on your nerves, you still have to find a way to be a great teammate. And that certainly is tested on college teams the same way I think it probably is in professional teams or high school. Um, yeah, those I think are maybe key tenets of our program. To hold themselves to great accountability in those pieces, I think, is a lot to take on for a team. But I think we did that pretty well.
And for 18-year-olds who come in.
For
I mean, I think,
absolutely right.
what's your perspective? I'm a young guy, so I view kids that age. They seem young to me now, but with time and wisdom, I look back to middle school kids now, and in middle school, eighth grade basketball is like the pinnacle of a kid's life. I feel like they think they're on top of the world. They think they're Michael Jordan. And then you get to
Right,
high school, and middle school seems so small. And then you get to college, and high school seems so small, and so on and so
right,
forth. When an
right.
18-year-old came into your program, did you have this feeling of like, oh, we're about to go on a journey with each other over the next 4 years? And what was that process of transformation like with kids from year one to sometimes year five if they were doing a grad year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you nailed it. I mean, the eighth grade basketball analogy, I would call it like, a lot of our recruits, like when they come out of high school, like they're just like walking on air in the hallways senior year, right? They're going to Brooks PR and New Balance Nationals and podcasts, and now it's NIL, but yeah, they're on top of the world. And then, you walk into like the meat grinder of the NCAA, where like, your first meet, you're like running as hard as you can, and you're in like 82nd place, and everybody around you won the state meet. Winning the state meet's not that special, and all these things that are just very humbling. But those are incredible opportunities for people to really test what they're about. And I just have so much respect for the athletes that almost take like backward steps to then make forward steps. And I think that's even harder when you're under a great microscope. I always think of Caitlin Tui, like her first year at NC State, like she got thrashed a little bit, and that exact moment like runs people out of the sport. And what made, to me, Caitlin Tui who she was she stuck around for the hard part to see the beauty that was just around the corner. But it is like, if you people that go through that, I mean, it's completely humbling, demoralizing, ego destroying work to get there. So for a lot of the 18-year-old kids that come in top of the world to just have everything be hard and demoralizing and not have affirmation coming your way every second of what you're doing is really tough. The other element of it is so many of those athletes like they're used to being in control, and so whether it's like literally control of their efforts, workouts, races, um, I think I'll slow down. I think I'll speed up. I can drop this person anytime I feel like it. I choose my races. I'm completely confident in all my situations. I mean, it's like the exact opposite your freshman year in the NCAA. And so, again, another real test of like who you're working with and what they're going to be like is how they respond to that. But um, if you don't get it right initially, I won't say it's like over for you, but I would say the ones that end up great in the machine that is the NCAA, they respond pretty well in those situations, because it's not about necessarily immediate extrinsic reward or affirmation or clout or attention. They're willing to walk the dark streets and the trenches to get there, and so I think that's a really important part of the beginning.
Something I've thought about a lot, both in sport, business, relationship, whatever it might be. What gets you from 0 to 10 won't get you from 10 to 100. What gets you from 100 to 1,000, like what's required to get to a certain level, probably won't work to get to that next level. High
Hmm.
schoolers, specifically, a lot of the ones you're recruiting, people hate this, but it's just the truth. Most are very, very talented. You always come across those kids who run 35 miles a week and are running, 401, 402. Not always the case, but it is very common. And that's not going to get you to be top 10 at NCAA cross, and top 10 at
Hmm.
NCAA cross. And what you did to get there is not going to get you to a world championship team, or much less a world championship podium. From your
Hmm.
understanding, coaching at multiple levels of the sport, what are those things that you think unlock that next level of the sport for the athlete to ultimately get there?
That's a really good question. That's yeah, those are the places in my mind all the time, and I think you nailed it just right. It's, what you can get away with at certain levels ultimately gets exposed at the next levels. We always assume that if you're talented enough to get to a certain level that you must do all the little things right. And it's, even working with professional athletes, it's surprising that somebody could make a world championship team, but they're not very advanced in certain aspects of their career. But that's very possible. I think in the NCAA right now, what you see is this very quickly, almost overnight, has turned into professional athletics. And so this assumption of just that you can like live, you know, um, you know, like half your week like a frat boy, and then you show up on the weekends and like care a whole lot. Like back when I was running, like that was really possible, and you could still be a good athlete. And now I think like you just get exposed really, really quick if you're not completely all in on this, and even bad habits of like how you fueled in high school. When we're looking at 1%, or when six people a second are going to cross the finish line, or the difference from 35th to 45th place, could be 30 points. It's yeah, all these little things are going to add up and make a huge difference. And so when you have athletes that are open to that, and actually a talent is their ability to connect the dots from the other 22 hours of the day that they're not at practice, and how that actually affects these little pieces. Even at the highest level, like Nico Young just finished fifth in the world in the 10K, and he's one, maybe less than a second or a second from winning the world 10,000. But if you ask him in that race, I mean, it might as well be the guy, they might as well have been, he feels like they're 400 meters ahead of him. That's what 1 second is at the top of the world is. 1 second is like what it's all about. And so you're asking people to be able to connect the dots of what would you do for that second. And ultimately, that's not found in harder workouts or more mileage or toughness as we think so much in athletics, but it's actually in all the painfully annoying little ways that we're going to ask you to live your life. And ultimately, there's a level of that from high school to college, college to pro. But I think the people that make those commitments, that's where they'll often find that second.
I think a big thing that takes athletes from good to great is how they speak to themselves, that interior dialogue. I've had on your good friend, my good friend Shannon Thompson, countless times on this podcast, who's done extensive work with, the NAU teams as well as a lot of your professional athletes. What are the biggest things you've learned from her in your work with her, and how has she influenced a lot of the ways you, I wouldn't just say coach, but how you speak to your athletes?
Yeah, we were super fortunate. I mean, right away at NAU to work with a mental performance coach, Shannon Thompson. She's she's brilliant. She's a gem. She's a big part of our success. She was someone that I think a really crucial element of working with a mental performance coach was this wasn't just someone that we occasionally checked in with, or someone that the athletes just spoke to, once a month or before the big moment. But this is someone that they were having sessions with every single week, throughout a year. And so when the time came for actually these big moments to arrive, we would just talk how we talk every single day. There wasn't like a change of language or a change of philosophy. I think Shannon has done a really good job of bringing kind of like old school sports psychology, which is very clinical, into modern athlete language and understanding in really tangible ways. I think that's really like the new school of where we've headed in that field, and I think that she's exceptional at that. Um, but something Shane and I really clicked on, and something that we would talk a lot about, are what people are seeking from the race, what we're asking of the race, what we're asking of the performance. Are we asking it to validate us? Are we asking it to make everything, all the hard work worthwhile? Or are we truly just trying to compete against ourselves in our competition? And so really trying to shift people's focus to what they're seeking from the race was a big element that we really aligned on. And actually putting what was in control of the athletes in front of them, instead of just hoping that it goes well, but actually having the tools to use inside these crucial moments, I think was a big part of that work. Shannon was always huge on centering them on gratitude, which I think is very powerful. And gratitude is not just don't forget to say thank you, or don't forget that your life is really good, but actually to channel gratitude in very powerful ways of this is what we get to do, not what we have to do. That this is yeah, if this is the hard moment of our life, that this is just a blessing, and we're lucky even on the hard days. But we're those kids at NAU are living some high school kid's dream, and these professional athletes are living some college kid's dream, and never to forget that this is your story.
Such good words there. It reminds me to ask you a question that I'm now forgetting because so many thoughts are circulating in my head here. Shannon, words. Um, oh man, so many different ways to go from here. I guess something I did want to ask you about is any kid who comes to NAU is going to be, remarkably excellent and probably come into college with the hopes and the dreams of, one day becoming a professional runner. How hard was it in those moments with specific athletes where you kind of both realize that professional running isn't going to be their next step? What's that morning process like with the athlete where you want them to close out their career on a good note, but it's maybe, kids dream of being pro runners now in sixth grade when they get introduced to it. What were those moments like with athletes going through their own grieving processes with the sport? Because we love to talk about the Nicos and the Bosleys and the ones who make it, right? But we don't talk about the
Mm,
guys who came into high school and didn't make it, but they worked just as hard.
right. Yeah. I think mindsets like that are really holding athletes back. I mean, there's probably a parallel mindset with high school athletes that just want to run Division 1 college track or cross country, or run in college. And if you stood in front of the 250 athletes on the starting line of the NCAA cross country meet and said, "Who wants to go to the Olympics?" everyone would raise their hands. But like, to me, it's not really any different than outcome oriented mindsets of being All-American, or running professional, or making a team. Those are all outcomes. And the problem when we're so outcome oriented is we're missing the opportunity to live in process. And so I would try to steer athletes away from defining success by if I get a college scholarship or if I run as a pro. And I think in my college program when I was coaching, I would really spend very little time talking to athletes about running professionally, because that was again an outcome that would take them out of actually the whole purpose is like is living the day to day in the moments that we're in. And if we're only defining success by this small bullseye of some some shoe company or someone wants to pay me to do this longer, we're going to miss enjoying living in this process. And so, for sure, there's some of those conversations, but it was not really a place that we lived in very often. And it was again to not miss the opportunity. It's just I think it's the same as I mean, some of the more painful moments as a college coach would definitely be people that did everything right, wanted it just as bad as anyone else, but their bodies bodies would fail them, at different times with injury. People that are, this is your year, you're a senior, everything is going well, and then next thing you know, your shin hurts, and that's it. It's taken from you. And they really natural moment for people in those places would be I did all this for what, or it wasn't worth it. And what you want them to look back on, like when they wake up and they're 40, is to be just really proud of the kid that tried to get there, right? Like that's what it is. It's not, it's not really what your 5K. It was worth it if I ran 15:30, and it's not worth it if I ran 16 minutes. That's a crazy way to live to me. I think to look back and be really proud of the person that was like brave enough to go for it is the whole point. So whether you are running in college or you're running as a pro, what you want to be is really proud of the young man or young woman that like gets out of bed every morning and tries to be that. That to me is the whole point.
Oh, I love this. I want to share an insight with you and get your thoughts on this because this is something I've been chewing on recently in romantic relationships, but I think there's a corollary between that and running here. I've coined this like, quote, the risk of love, which is you could date someone and you can pour your heart and your soul into them. You can buy them nice gifts. You can, yeah, share your heart with this person emotionally, like the whole nine yards. Like romantic relationships require all of you to give it a chance to make it work. If the end goal is marriage, you share so much of life together, all these things. And what I call the risk of love is the risk of it not working out. And I think a lot of people think if a relationship doesn't work out, it was all for gone. It wasn't worth it. But I think just as you were kind of saying there with running, if it doesn't work out, it's still all worth it because of the ways love transforms you, the way it allows you to be selfless for another person, the way it allows you to open up with another person. Relating it to running, I think I was so dialed in middle school and high school. I wanted to run for an NAU. Wanted to win an NXN. That didn't happen. Looking back, I could have done specific things, but I feel like I gave my heart and my soul to the sport, and I didn't even go to college at the end of it. So it's extra funny. But I look back on those years, and I could say, what a waste of time. I ran 65 miles a week in high school and skipped parties, skipped probably full friendships, skipped family moments. But instead, I choose to have what I think is the correct perspective, which is the person that those experiences formed me into was worth every bit of suffering, every 9 hours of sleep that I missed other things, because of the person it formed me into. And I think we live in a society and culture where if we don't get the end thing that the work is supposed to
Hmm.
get us, it's all failure. When in reality,
Hmm.
probably the healthier mindset is you should do it for the work, not actually for the result,
Mm.
because you love to do the work itself.
End of podcast right there. That's it. That's it. I mean, that's it. You nailed it. I mean, you nailed it right there. That's everything. I mean, yeah, we're sure. And I think the analogy of human relationship is so important. Being a college coach, I think of the hours and hours of meetings I had where, ultimately you're talking about how school and family is going, but because they're 18 to 22, you become an expert in the carnage train wrecks of how they manage their relationships and the breakups and falling in love with the person you met 3 days ago and all the things that come with that age. But yeah, ultimately, what you're speaking about is the great risk of vulnerability, and that's why that's another word that's just like thrown around carelessly. I like made a goal last year not to say the word vulnerability because I was just like so sick of it. But yeah, there's got to be a synonym. But ultimately, yeah, it's the decision to take the risk on something with no guarantee, and that's no different than the starting line of a race or. Um, choosing to step forward with someone that can break your heart at any single minute. Um, to step forward into a career or choose a major. It's all the same. It's all the same thing, and it's why people can't do it. And I think what you see, what I see in the NCAA from all these people that I didn't coach was a lot of people half in, lying to themselves that they're in, and not because they don't want it, and not because they're bad people, but because they're the very human, natural. Element of vulnerability is just too much. I mean, there's better odds of success in card games in Vegas than there are in NCAA cross country, and a lot of people can't deal with that, right? Or to not get it right, and still show up on Monday trying to get it right. It's it's why people can't be vulnerable in their relationships and can't be vulnerable and ultimately their racing. And so I think you nailed it though, that it's actually the risk is the reward. And it's not how fast you run, it's who you become. Trying to see how fast you can run is the whole point. And you can tell them this all day long, by the way. They have to be ready to hear it. And um, ultimately that just comes with time. I mean, I could say I could give that exact talk to a freshman in my office, and it just in one ear out the other. They're not ready, and then I could literally from a script use the same words their junior or senior year, and they can finally hear it for the first time. And so, um, I think uh, those risks are ultimately really important to who you become. And so. I would just encourage anyone that is scared or looking for certainty in those moments that doesn't have it, um, to keep walking, keep stepping towards it, because the real gift is just around the corner.
A lot of people say, including myself at times, running is the most simple sport. It's just one foot in front of the other. And then there are coaches I speak to, like you or Milt or others, where I talk to them and I'm like, you're such a gift to society, the way that you're forming the next generation of athletes, using running as a tool to turn them into everything they can be. And the last 15 minutes of discussion is some real raw stuff we could probably talk about for 5 hours. That's very
Hmm.
philosophical and very has everything to do with running, but has nothing to do with running. And I think the best coaches understand that running can be a tool to get an athlete to those things. And that's why I think running is the most beautiful sport on this earth. And it's why that when runners exit the sport, they generally have really successful families and careers and whatnot, is because running is just a really special sport that correlates really well with life. How much of your understanding of that goes into how you coach athletes now, coached athletes back in the day, where even something that stood out to me in eighth grade when I studied you was you never really used the term of winning. And that baffled me, Coach Smith. I was like, well, they win all the time. How could he not talk about winning? But that was an important lesson to me, even in eighth grade, of like, okay, maybe I shouldn't focus on winning as much. And it took me down this deep rabbit hole that ultimately unlocks certain characteristics that you ultimately want to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing to always remember, in any positions of any roles that carry positions of power, so teachers, parents, but man, coaches, this is it. I'm just like, these kids are standing in front of you, and like the last thing they want to do is disappoint you, right? They want you to be proud of them. I mean, all the work I did with kids about their moms and dads, and for the most part, all these moms and dads they're trying to get it right, and they want to support their kid. And but there was, it just got particularly around young men and their dads, just this over and over again, these just stories of wanting them to feel proud, and like just what you just want them to know is like, are you like they don't it's not how fast you run, right? It's like the guy that's showing up to practice every day and facing fears and trying to do better. I mean, it's these parents can't love you anymore. They literally cannot love you anymore. And if they get it wrong by expressing their love or expressing their pride through an athletic endeavor, that might just be the way it manifests, but it doesn't mean that's more or less. But man, that's not what it feels like when you're a young person. It just feels like you're, they their well-intentioned want so badly to make people proud of them. And I just having two babies, two daughters, I think I feel really lucky to have gone through this experience of coaching other people's kids for all these years, of just knowing like never underestimate that. As a parent, that like they'll carry that with them, whether I want them to or not, but I have a real choice in how I respond to that. And I think similar to what we were talking about, like it's not like this is the success if you are a pro runner or if you're an All-American. It's why athletes become so outcome oriented around titles, around why top 40 in the NCAA means so much more than 41st, or top three at the Olympic trials means so much more than fourth or fifth. It's ultimately tied to that validation of others that this is all worth it. I mean, it's why the Olympic team means so much more to people than the World Championship team, which is, by the way, is just as hard a team to make. But the O word, it just translates differently. It's just finally acceptance, finally good enough, and good enough is it's a it's a game that has no end. It's a race with no finish line, you know. And so ultimately, when you can get people, the earlier they can reconcile that, I think the better.
Such good concepts and subjects in there. I read a book, highly recommend you or any listener out there reads. It's called Make Sense of Your Story by Adam Young. And
Hmm,
it made me ask questions that I'd never asked before. And one of those was, I grew up with really good parents, but I think I love my dad. I have a really good relationship with my dad now, but I think I didn't get the validation that a young boy, ultimately desires in his heart. And I think I've had to do a lot of soul searching, looking back on my time in the sport of running, saying, I think I was so driven and motivated in the sport of running because the refrain was, by friends and family was, oh, Dominic, you're so fast, or it was
hmm,
all about running. And then it's horrifying, but it's true. I think there are parts of myself that still show up with this podcast or different parts of the business or company where that young boy is still seeking and searching for that validation that he didn't get from dad as a young
hmm,
boy. And years later, he's still searching from other people telling him he's good at what he does or whatever that might look like. I'm sure
hmm,
you, as you talked about there with your athletes, experience that a lot of times where, at the core root of something, the energy of why they're doing the thing isn't maybe the most sustainable. And I think the best reason to do it is to do it for you, but also to do it for something so much bigger than yourself, understanding, how both of those can exist at the same time. Is that a process you've gone down? Obviously a very deep personal one, but with athletes of, you are enough in your wholeness,
hmm,
in your humanness, and you don't need to win an NCAA title for me to love you anymore, validate you anymore. But I want to
hmm.
go on this journey with you if you ultimately want to.
The way I can see it, the way I can hear it, the way I can isolate the voice in the guys I would work with or the young women I would work with is ultimately because I have it in myself. It's a street I had to walk myself, and it's why I can hear it and I can pick it out so well. Uh, but it's through the journey I had to walk. But it's a very natural progression. I would hear it all the time working with young people, which is I was just like a kid walk like of the hundreds of kids in my hallway in high school, and then here was this thing that I did, and there was finally good enough. There was attention, there was affirmation, even though everyone at home said we love you just the same, no matter how fast you run. Um, those were the words, but it certainly felt like people love me a lot more when I win the race, and I set the record. And ultimately, what we I think you can learn from human behavior is that people you can say the right words all the time. I really probably I don't think I coach parents that actually like got the words wrong. They got the words right all the time, and they really meant it from the bottom of their heart. Like, hey, listen, win, lose, first, last. We love you just the same. Um, it's the messaging that's not found in the language. I think that ultimately the young athletes will chase. And so here we are feeling like we're just anyone else. There's nothing special about us. And then here's this thing that we do that makes us different, special, accepted, good enough. And that's the feeling they're chasing. Then back to the beginning of our conversation, you get into the NCAA, and you're all of a sudden this identity that you've created around this is where your value is lost in, I'm in 95th at Nuttycombe. Like what, it's like you just uh, you got to be really careful with that. And that's where college coaches, I think, are so important, because a lot of that reckoning occurs between 18 and 22. You create this identity around your success in high school, um, and then here comes the oh shit moment of that's not sustainable. That's not going to work. I better find another way to recognize who I am, and it's not from winning races. And you'd be so surprised. I mean, the people that we put on the highest pedestal in the sport, these are journeys that they also have to travel. And it's ultimately also why transition out of sport can be so hard for college athletes, professional athletes, is because they'll tell you, like, this is my identity. This is who I am. This is why people love me and the value I have walking this earth. And so, really good work for coaches to do is help people along that transition to see that this is something that you do, but it's not who you are. And really, that's actually in true ownership. I mean, you can have someone enter college feeling like this is their result is with this direct correlation to their value, and they can get on starting lines feeling totally different about that. And ultimately, it's liberation, it's freedom to just compete. We're playing a game. That's all it is. We're playing a game, and that's where your best athletic self is going to come out.
Did you ever see the tweet that Ashton Eaton put out after he retired?
I did not see the tweet, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't see the tweet. I probably tried not to see the tweet, but tell me.
I want to read it to you. It might take a second, but I love this. Andy Weeding actually, I think, brought this up to me because he had this great refrain on the podcast where he said, running is something you do; it's not who you are. And then he read part of this post. So Ashton tweeted a few years ago. He goes, "To the athletes who are retiring or considering after this season and are having trouble coming to terms with moving on, perhaps this is potentially useful. An approach I found helpful to overcome the problem was to treat moving on from the sport like having someone you love die. It's often said,
Hmm,
find your passion, find what you love. For athletes, our problem is that we did. We did find it and we did love it, but then it got taken away, injury, or we had to leave it, time. So I thought, how would I feel? What would I do if one of my kids died or my spouse? It'd be painful beyond description. To not be with them every day, I'd be completely changed forever. Everything would remind me of them. They're a massive part of who I am. I'm deeply influenced by them in so many ways. I would miss them and remember them every day. But I wouldn't want to try to stop these thoughts or try to forget them. I'd embrace the
hmm,
memories and the time we had together. I'd dwell on regrets about the things we didn't get to do or how much better I could have been. I'd also dwell on the memories about incredible times, the things I did right, times when everything was the best. Importantly, though, I wouldn't go searching for someone or something new to replace them. They are too
hmm,
unique, too special to me. But I believe I'd still be able to love something different, unique in its own way, maybe even having some of the same qualities, and I'd still think about them. I believe this is okay. After coming to this
hmm,
conclusion, I used it as my approach with moving on from the sport. I love it. I loved being with it, but we couldn't be together anymore. It's still a massive part of who I am. So rather than try to disassociate and move on, which I tried to for many years and failed, I now allow memories to come to mind whenever they do. And that's a lot because most of my experiences in life come up to this point have to do with the sport. Various things throughout the day remind me of it. I use sport analogies to understand new things. Most of how I think and approach life comes from the lessons I learned as an athlete. I believe this is okay. It's also much easier from a mental friction standpoint. I'm remain more connected to the sport and the people in it. Overall, it's okay to continue to think about and be influenced by something loved and lost. So the question was how to find something new. What was similar qualities of the sport, since I was attracted to those things in the first place, but in different fields that seem interesting or important? What has competition, something national or global in nature, something that pushes the limits of human ingenuity and performance, something with a goal people admire, get excited about, or something people deeply respect because of the skill and knowledge required to do it? Something that is both an art and a science? These are the guiding questions for me personally, and they're why I'm attracted to space exploration, energy, and technologies that advance human performance. Hopefully, useful
hmm.
to some.
Beautiful. He nailed it. He nailed it. I I'll let that stand alone. That's better said than I think anybody could say it. But I think what Ashton nailed there is just, um, I think humans are we're not necessarily great at the letting go and letting things move as they have to move. Whether we're talking about we're talking about death or transitions in life. Um, but I really appreciate the celebration of what has occurred, and ultimately, I think when you're open in that way, I mean, I feel like this about everyone I coach is I hope the coolest thing they do in all the chapters of their life is not win the state meet. It's my wish for Cole Hawker, who I don't know at all. I hope I hope for him the winning the gold medal is one of the cool things of his life, but there's other really great cool things, right? And this isn't the pinnacle, and that would be my wish for anybody. But that requires a lot of wisdom and a lot of maybe even a painful journey in the letting go.
There's this excellent quote, maybe the hardest hitting quote I've ever heard. And I was reminded of it. So I was going to bring it up at some point when you said that, you don't necessarily believe in anything, but you looked up to the sky when you got the job at NAU and were like, if this is all I ever do, this is great. And the quote is, you've already achieved goals you said would make you happy. And that hit me like a train wreck because in my
Mm,
life, I feel like, 2, 3 years ago, I'm living a life that I thought I would maybe never even get to in my life. And
hmm
yet I'm maybe the most miserable I've ever been because of all this chasing and all this searching for more and more and more. And
hmm
it's this concept of, we think as humans that fulfillment is on the other end of the goalpost that we're currently on. And yet if we sit and we reflect, we are already on the other side of the last goalpost. And so if we aren't fulfilled by the goals we just achieved, why do we think that we'll be fulfilled on the next set of goals that we might achieve?
hmm This is in the DNA of everyone successful. Anyone you speak to in athletics and business, all these driven athletes, coaches, they will tell you that happiness was always just around the corner. Um, the younger version of Dominic, if he could have imagined this life, he'd say, "That's it. I'm good. I won't ask for anything else." And that's actually uh, that's the wolf inside of all of us that's never satiated, right? It's always there's always more, right? There's this. I remember hearing this story about Urban Meyer at Florida winning the national championship and like running through the hallways and locking himself in the office to call recruits and not celebrating it for a second, but always just like mind on to the next thing. Um, and I think that's a real art right there to understand that life is not waiting to happen, that this is your life is happening right now. I think I was fortunate when, to win national championships, like still in my 30s, to drive home alone in the car from those and realize like, man, I thought this was it. And just that's not it. And I think, the coaches that are seeking, thinking like this will be the moment that it all clicks, it all makes sense is, when I win these things. Ultimately find like that there's a hollowness in it because it doesn't change anything. Um, yeah, it's there. Um, there's a Milt will often quote. Geez, I should remember it here, but it's the Rudyard Kipling poem. If I remember after those guys. Uh, After Ethan and Parker ran 7:30. Uh, and at the I really didn't know Ethan and Parker, but I was just so excited for Milt, it being like, oh man, incredible. I hope you're celebrating. And he like just hit me back with this quote from this poem, and it was like, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's like basically like taking fame and heartbreak as equal imposters. But it's that line, equal imposters, like the uh, don't be too high and don't be too low, but not to read too much into either of those things. Is the whole balance is the whole trick. I think when you talk to coaches and you talk to athletes, that's a common theme that you'll hear is the never satisfied, highly obsessive. It was all about being a pro. Well, now that I'm a pro, it's all about making this team. Now I made the team, and now it's all about medaling. Um, yeah, I mean, all the great ones have it. You never Donovan Brazier for all these years. It was like I just want to be healthy, and then we're healthy, and then it's now I just want to set the American record. And wait a second, I thought it was we just wanted to be healthy. And Nico Young finishing fifth in the world, like walking off thinking, why am I not first, second, third? And it's in all of us. It's in all of us, and it's both a blessing and a curse. It's what makes people who they are is like that drive, but it's also something to be tempered and learned for sure.
The direct quote from that poem, I looked it up for you. If you can dream and not make your dreams master, if you can think and not make your thoughts aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. And I love the closing of this poem, which I've read before. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Sounds like something Shannon
Mm.
Thompson would write, quite frankly. I love it. I love it. Um, Wrapping this conversation up, I do want to talk about present day. How do you coach everyone from Galen Rupp to Donovan Brazier and just about everyone in between? I was talking to Drew Bosley and I said, we talk about these fantasy football and fantasy baseball and in these drafts. And if you were to draft a super team, specifically with the quote unquote new class you just got with Strand and Wolf and Bosley, and that would probably be it. If we were 4 years ago, as all these studs were crushing it in college, were to say, these guys are all going to end up on the same team one day, I think super fans of the sport would be like, no way. So what's the energy and excitement going into this next year with this squad, with this group of incredible individuals?
Yeah, I mean, I think immediately leaving college coaching, like one of the things I was looking for in this transition in my coaching was just to return to creativity and capacity that I feel like I really had early on in my career, and that with the loss of time and just taking on more athletes, I begin to narrow my capacity and narrow my creativity or my ability to access those things. And so first and foremost, like energy and excitement is super high in what we're doing, but I want to be able to bring in that higher capacity and higher creativity to what we do. I think. We've got great athletes, but we have so many of them that are new to being professionals, and so there's a real opportunity for teaching of actually setting the stage for um, 27 and 28 by using 25, 26 to learn how to actually be a professional, and teaching some of these fundamental aspects of what we do. Everyone is willing to train hard. Everyone's willing to go to bed early. That actually is the easy part, but to teach people the ins and outs of how to think and how to operate, how to actually arrive at these moments believing they belong on the starting line in that moment, to not just say you're excited to be there, but to actually feel excited to be there. If I work backwards from those goals of how to prepare people, I think that's the work ahead for us. They're uh, just like I feel like at NAU, we did a really good job in picking who's going to be part of this culture, and I think we've done a good job in setting the stage with the people that we have involved here. Um, there's some old heads, and then we got people that are just like fresh into a couple months into being a pro and still pulling the tags off their new Nike gear and learning the ins and outs of things. And I think that there's a great opportunity for teaching. So really looking forward to that.
I want to ask you before we wrap up, because Tim Surface has been good to both you and I. You use Final Surge specifically this fall as you're crafting your athletes training. How beneficial has that company been? And throughout the years, I know you used it with the NAU teams and just your relationship with Tim as well, and how much he has poured his heart into this company that has helped coaches and your athletes.
Yeah, just a quick correction. I'm new to Final Search. Did not use it at NAU.
Okay.
Used a much smaller company called Google Docs. But we didn't use Final Surge, and
I don't know why I
I was
thought you
used to
did.
it. No, it's all right. It actually, I think I could make this endorsement even higher because I had a system that I had dialed in and relied on for distributing training for a long time, and I was leery about something new, but I wanted to be really efficient in how we wrote training and how we applied training, and also provide easy and effective ways for athletes to give feedback. And so I could say that I went into final surge, tiptoed into final surge, just wondering if this was going to be right, and I've just blown away by it. I mean, I remember texting Tim like a few weeks into it, being like, "Man, you should be so proud of this because it's so effective, it's so efficient." Again, talking about creativity and capacity. Those are things I'm looking for in a platform, but also efficiency being, if I'm losing hours of my day, cutting and pasting on a Google Doc spreadsheet, that's not very efficient. I feel like they've made this really easy for coaches, really easy for athletes. The way it syncs with their watches, yeah, the real time feedback. Those are the things that first come to mind. So I'm a couple months into it, and we're implementing it with my group, and nothing but rave reviews so far. So I would really encourage, especially people that are picky. I feel like I had a high standard for this, and really liked the system I had. But if you have a high bar, you're not going to be disappointed. It's incredible.
Final question for you, Coach Smith. What's one lesson that you wish and you hope every athlete you've coached, or every athlete listening who comes into the sport of running comes out of the sport of running with? One lesson that you feel like is the most beneficial to take into life that the sport of running can teach you or has taught your athletes, or you hope will teach your athletes?
My wish would be, particularly as people become moms and dads, and again do other things besides pursue pursue running, that they unlock that it's the trying and it's the pursuit that really is what it's all about, not the outcome, not where they end up. And so um, that version of them that shows up each day in their careers or in their marriages or parenting, to me is really what it's about. It's just the version of you that's trying to be better and trying to master something and trying to get something right that you didn't get right the first time. That to me is what's really special, and the world needs people like that head into their day to day seeing the value in that. And I think they think it's all about their PRs while they're doing it. But I think if they ultimately look back on their high school running or their college running, their professional running, and realize that it's who they're becoming as they pursue it, and they look for that in the next thing that comes, then their running has done everything they could have asked for it. And so that would be my wish. I would, I guess you asked me for one, but I would say a second one is that it unlocks a relationship with confidence, that they actually have everything that they need. When I think people begin in this, they're very much passengers in the journey, and confidence comes from. It's funny. I remember having dinner with the Ingebrigtsen brothers, and they said this great line. They nailed me. They hit me over the head with it. But they said, "You Americans are always looking for uh, confidence in your training and not confirmation. Confidence, not
Mm.
confirmation." And what they were saying was like, we're always looking for the workout to tell us we're ready, or we're a good athlete, or we're just as good as someone else, or we could run that time, when really that's got to come from inside you. The workout should be confirmation that you're ready, but not where you seek the confidence. And I would hope that in people's running, this relationship with their confidence reveals to them that they are who they dreamed that they could be, and they should just be looking for confirmation of that, not these external things telling them that's who they are. That's got to come from inside.
On that note, wow, what a podcast! We didn't talk about training once. We didn't so many things. I got to get you back on because I feel like we're just scratching the surface over an hour in. But this conversation is truly a gift. And if you go back to old notebooks of mine and you look through, Dream Podcast guests, I'm not just saying this to flatter you. It's the truth. Your name was always up there. So I hope this
Huh.
was worth your time. It was certainly a blessing to me, and I know we'll bless with the listener. A fantastic conversation. And I said this to you before we opened up the conversation, but sincerely, thank you for your contributions to the sport. The amount of athletes directly of yours who speak positively, not to just how you've fundamentally transformed their lives in the sport of running as runners, but their lives in general is countless and
Hmm.
numerous. And then the amount of people like me who never got the privilege to be coached by you, I would have been a hell of a lot better if I was. But just were able to listen to a 5-minute interview with you, after you lost NCAA cross country on Flow Track, or listened to you on I listened to you mowing the lawn back in the day, that podcast you did with Steve Magnus and Marcus years ago. Things like that, I think other people have picked up on and just been able to learn from you. You're a true gift, not to just this sport, but this world. And I'm grateful to
Mm.
have this time with you and learn from you. So deeply appreciate it.
Thanks so much for that. Thank you.